What's up, millennials? Today we're going to be taking a look at the fair price per share of a company called RenewPower. This is a renewable energy company from India, and it's going to be merging with the SPAC that's currently trading under the ticker symbol RMGB. But before we start, if at any moment during this video you don't really know what I'm talking about, please check my full SPAC guide. The link to this video is going to be somewhere in the description, and today we're going to be taking a look at method number 2. Also, if you need access to the Excel sheet I'm going to be using today, you can join our Discord for free to get access to it. You can simply do so by going to nesami.com/discord. You can then leave your name, leave your email address, and you're going to get access to it. And of course, as always, don't trust me, verify me. I'm just documenting my journey here on YouTube. I'm certainly not a financial advisor. Don't copy my numbers as is, but come up with your own multiples, your own numbers to see what you believe is a fair price per share for this company. RenewPower is India's largest renewable energy company, and this company, of course, is based in India. And if you want to know a little bit more about it, you can maybe also check out the one-pager that was released by Chamath Palihapitiya a while ago, because he is doing the pipe for this company that is going to merge with RMGB. So here he has a nice little summary of the company. You can just check it out if you go to his Twitter, and I'm also going to put the link in the description so you can check it out. And with regards to the merger date, we don't have a date just yet, but we do know that they're very likely to merge somewhere in Q2 of this year. If we then take a look at the pro forma valuation of this company, we can, in the investor presentation, see, of course, that they started out trading at $10 per share, as is very common with SPACs, of course. So that's the number you can plug out over here in your Excel sheet. Then we can also see that they have, or they are going to have rather, 437 million shares outstanding after the merger. So that's the number you can plug in over here. And then the Excel sheet is already going to calculate that pro forma market cap of almost $4.4 billion, just like is present in the investor presentation right over here next to equity value, because equity value is basically the same as a market cap. Then the other thing we need to arrive at an enterprise value is to determine the amount of net cash they are going to have on their balance sheet. We can see a few things. We can see, first of all, that they are going to have existing cash of 730 million. So let's put that in our calculator. They're also going to have $610 million in cash that is going to go to their balance sheet. So we're going to add that up. And then you also see that they have a pretty significant amount of debt of $4.8 billion in debt. So that is the number you have to subtract. So then you arrive at a net amount of cash of almost $3.5 billion in debt. So a negative amount of $3.476 billion, which is the number you can plug in over here. And that's also the number that should be, or no, it's not actually in the investor presentation, but you can see that if you take that market cap of 4.37 billion and then you add back the amount of debt, because right now the enterprise value is actually higher than the market cap because of that debt, well, then you can see that you arrive at an enterprise value of 7.846 billion, which is also the number that's right over here in the investor presentation. So it might sound a little bit weird because, yeah, the enterprise value is higher compared to the market cap, but that is, again, because of that net debt instead of a net positive amount of cash on their balance sheet. If we go into trading view, we can see that RMGB is currently trading at $10.01 per share pre-market. So that is the number you can plug over here in your Excel sheet. And yeah, the numbers are not going to change a lot, of course, because 1 cent extra is not a massive change. So yeah, the pro forma market cap is just going to stay the same, 4.4 billion, and the pro forma enterprise value is going to stay relatively the same as well. So about $7.9 billion. But that is, of course, the current pro forma enterprise value. We want to know what a fair enterprise value is to arrive at that fair market cap and then to a fair price per share. So first of all, we need that fair enterprise value. How are we going to get there? Well, we are going to need two numbers for this calculation. First of all, we're going to take a certain EBITDA of a certain year, and then we're going to apply a range of multiples to that EBITDA to arrive at that fair enterprise value. Let's first take a look at the EBITDA of a certain year. And for this video, we're going to be taking a look at the valuation, or the enterprise value rather, of 2022, or at least fiscal year 2022. We can see in the investor presentation they expect, and of course, as I say in almost all my videos, expect is a big word because we don't know for sure if this is going to happen, but they expect to have $811 million in EBITDA in 2022, or at least the fiscal year 2022. Just one side note, by the way, because we do see that the EBITDA and also the net revenue, or the revenue right here, has been relatively steady for the last couple of years, but they do expect to ramp up quite significantly over the next like 4 or 5 years, more or less. So that is a story you need to believe for this company. You need to believe that they are not going to be staying stagnant, but they are actually going to ramp up. So yeah, that's something you need to keep in mind. Let's go back to that EBITDA of $811 million. So that is the number you can plug over here in your Excel sheet, which is the EBITDA of the fiscal year 2022. Now, the next thing we need is a fair range of multiples to apply to that EBITDA of $811 million, of course. And as we can see in the investor presentation, Renew is currently trading at a multiple of 9.7x if you look at the EBITDA of 2022, or at least the fiscal year 2022. But here we can also see the multiples of other similar companies out there, which are also in the same sector as Renew Power, of course. We can see that for the period starting February 19th in 2021, the median multiple of these companies out here, so Azure Power, let's see, that's EDP Renewables, NeoN, Orsted, Skadex, Solar, etc., all of these companies. We can see that the median multiple of these companies from the period starting February 19th, 2021 is 15.6x. So that's one of the numbers we could maybe be working with. We can also see that if you look at those same companies, the multiple for the period ending February 19th, 2021 was 14.5x. So those numbers could be used to construct a range of multiples, if you will. Instead of just using one of these numbers, I have come up with a range of multiples. And this is basically based on all of the multiples that can be found here in the investor presentation. We basically see that the lowest multiples are around 12x, so that's the number that I'm going to be using for a low multiple, and the highest multiples seem to be around 20x more or less. So that's the high multiple I'm going to be using for today's calculation of the enterprise value of Renew Power. So if you have these numbers, if you have plugged in these numbers into your Excel sheet, the Excel sheet is already going to take care of the rest of the calculations for you. What it's going to do is the following. It's first of all going to take that EBITDA of $811 million and is going to multiply that first of all by that low multiple of 12x to arrive at a low enterprise value of $9.7 billion. Then it's also going to take that same EBITDA of fiscal year 2022 and is going to multiply that by the high multiple of 20x to arrive at a high enterprise value of $16.2 billion. And then we can also take a look at the midpoint valuation, which is basically just the average between the low and the high enterprise value. And that midpoint valuation would be almost $13 billion. But that is, of course, the enterprise value. And of course, right now, keep in mind that we are taking a look at method number 2. We don't need to discount these numbers back to the present because we are looking at numbers, multiples from the same year. So basically saying that we are looking at multiples from fiscal year 2022 for all the companies. If we had been looking at the multiples for the similar companies in 2021 and Renew Power's multiple in 2025, for example, then yes, then we would need to discount it back to the present. But currently we are looking at the same multiples, or the multiples from the same year. Okay, hope that makes sense. If not, please check out the full SPAC guide that I mentioned earlier on in this video. Okay, so as I've said, these are the enterprise values, but we of course want to know what a fair market cap is and what a fair price per share is. For that, the only thing we need to do first of all is to go back to a market cap, and to do that we need to take into account the net amount of cash they have on their balance sheet. And as we said in the beginning of this video, that's going to be a quite massive amount of debt they're going to have on their balance sheet, almost $3.5 billion in debt. So if you take those enterprise values and subtract the amount of net cash, so yeah, the amount of debt they're going to have, then you arrive at these fair market caps. So for the low end, 6.3 billion, for the midpoint valuation, 9.5 billion, for the high valuation, 12.7 billion. Okay, then the only thing you need to do is to take those market caps and divide them by the amount of outstanding shares you're going to have after the merger, which is, as we said in the beginning of this video, 437 million shares outstanding. So if you do that, if you take those market caps, divide them by that number, you're going to arrive at these fair prices per share. So for the low valuation, $14.32. For the midpoint valuation, $21.74. And for the high valuation, $29.16. So based on these calculations, that would actually mean that Renew Power is currently undervalued. Now, of course, don't trust me, verify me. Always check what I'm doing. Always check if the calculations are actually correct. And also keep in mind, we have been taking a look at assumptions. We've taken a look at the EBITDA of fiscal year 2022. We don't know for sure if this is actually going to happen. We've applied a certain range of multiples to that EBITDA of fiscal year 2022. So if you change one of these numbers, the entire calculation is going to change and your fair price per share is going to change as well. So let me know in the comments what you believe is a fair range of multiples for Renew Power. And with that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video and to hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye!